Hey guys, how you doing? So I've just been working on this all day long. I wish I could work on my diploma and become a rich banker, join the 1%, but I can't. Ancient mysteries are calling to me. And you're going to love this video. We're deciphering how to read the Nub language. It looks like a unique hybrid of the Quipu and the Irish language, the Irish OM language. I'll show you how I think it's read. It's quite interesting. And we're going to look at all the nubs. I'm going to give you a little slideshow to show you some Inca stuff in ancient Ireland. It's just amazing. So, guys, preliminary, let's get into this because this is so good. Now, I want to credit Ancient Nub Stone Language on Twitter, Ancient History Criticisms, that channel. He's a nub expert, as we all know. Ancient Alternative View, another nub expert, Rob, who's also on Twitter. They have a group with a few other people on Twitter. They're always posting nub pictures. So for making me aware that there is actually a language in the Inca stone. It's just incredible. So let's come up with a solution because they haven't yet got a solution because they say it's really complex. It's all different. Look, don't worry about different individual sites around the planet and trying to link them all together. Just look at one site. So we're just going to look at Cuzco and see how that code works, okay? Because there's going to be dialects and different ways of doing it. And some will have nubs and not even be a language. So let's do this. And it's not even the nubs. So let's look at this. So stone walls in Cuzco can be the height of a Quipu. That's right, we're going to see that. At the height of a Quipu with 3 to 5 layers. So a Quipu is very broad, but it's only, in terms of height, it's only like about 3 to 5 layers of knots, usually just 3 knots. And this is actually the height of an Inca wall, a pre-Inca wall. So Brian Forster argues that Inca stones are on top of pre-Inca stones, which are the polygonal stones, the megalithic stones. So the inference is the walls having continued upwards at one time. But is that really the case? I mean, and the inference is the stones on top were replaced with rough Inca stones. Now, is that... Yes, you could argue that. Clearly there are some vestige of archaeological layers if the Incas occupied a site which was once used by the pre-Incas, but is that always the case? And does that have to be the case? Could those stones have been there earlier? So, in some places, it's hard to see that the walls did actually continue upwards with large stones, as we're going to see. Lighter stones could have been simply used where larger ones are not necessary. So, proposal, let's call the pre-Inca stones the Quipu section, and we're going to try and read that as a language. We're going to draw. I've got this drawing tablet. It's amazing. So, watch to the end, guys. This is the best. So, linguistic clues of writing. So, here we go. Now, look at this. These are clues that this, and I don't know if the other people have brought this up on Twitter or not, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. So nub is to know. It is gnosis. It is knowledge. So if you can read the nubs, you have knowledge. In Latin, it's nodum. So that's how we get our word in English, node. I note. Note. You see, note is similar to nub. Note it well, you see. How are you going to note it? Use nubs. Use a string language possibly. Noose. If it's tied very well, is that where nice comes from? Or if that C is the hard G of the classical period, is it a neck? And where does the word no come from? Was the word no actually generated, and all its vestiges such as negative, never, nil, was that actually generated by a contraction of I don't know, I don't know, no, I don't know. Oh, I can't not. Is that where not comes from? I don't not. I don't read. So not. And of course, yes sounds more like an expression of excitement. It's yes, yay, woohoo. Jump for joy at reading the script. So, other words for not. So, so in Irish, it's quite interesting. They have a word called snatham, or snath, however that is pronounced. And the English, the vestige in English seems to be snap or snip. So suddenly, the word for not, or nub, or whatever it is actually related to a verb interfering with a piece of string, tying it. It's a very verbal way of putting it. In Welsh, it's coolum. So that reminds us of loom, or gul, gold, precious. And it's thought that Gollum comes from this word gold because he's got his precious. But I've noticed that he also tells riddles and knowledge. And he's living down in the middle of an underground lake. So he's like, is he like the ghost of a dead pharaoh? Because Khufu was buried in the middle of an underground lake. And so Chinese kings in the middle of underground lakes under pyramids, apparently. In Icelandic, neuter. So that's another type of not. And in the Slav languages, we don't have any not at all. It's you can see Germanic words have entered. I'm using Polish here, so pentelka, Wenzel is wind. A word which doesn't seem to be in Germanic, supel. Another word for not is group. Make a grouping. Or another word is sink. Senk. It's quite interesting. Is this the inverted nub? So what's going on now? Iconoclasm in ancient Ireland. So here's the thing. Here's the problem. In late Roman times, it seems someone, or actually two people, there were two different St. Patricks, and pater just means father of the church, so it could have been applied to different people. Looks like they burnt everything, and they destroyed all the pagan monuments. And did they remove knowledge of travel to America, and also the snake cult? Because we see snakes are quite prolific in the Inca world. Did they share this with Viracocha peoples in the west, such as the Vikings or the Irish Vikings? So how does it work? We're going to cover this quickly, then we're going to get on to the fun stuff, the pictures. So look at the curved rocks. That's a clue. The strings actually join up as loops in the Quipu script. Quipu sections of rockwork resemble a string quipu. We're going to see that. And knobs, of course, imply knowledge. And, of course, we encounter a problem in this. We're going to read it top down. Is the code in the lines between the stones or in the stones themselves being shaped like knots? I don't know, or both. So let's get to it. So that is a quipu. And we made a video before showing that there is handedness in the knots. Some go off to the left and some actually veer off to the right. And you see this in the Irish language, in the Ogham script. You see some letters veering off to the right, some letters veering off to the left. And look, dots for I, E, U, O, A. And if you do it horizontally, it actually transects the line. Make that a bit bigger. So there are dots, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Are they the nubs? Possibly. And we see funny things like this, and we can see how well it was worked with alchemy or whatever it was, or cunning or whatever you want to believe. But because it was done purposely in this way, obviously it might be a kind of code. And Brian Forster often says that is pre-Inca and that is Inca. But that is also you see this all over Ireland, houses that look like this from a similar type of stone. So could it simply have just been built this way in the first place? And this could simply be Dark Ages Viracocha buildings. And I thought I came up with that link between the Quipu and the Ogham, but I didn't. I must have read this years ago, and then years later, oh, look what I've just discovered. But actually, look at this. Queshan Ogham. Queshan Ogham, or Quisha, is a way to write Quesha with the Ogham alphabet devised by Lenny Bright. He thought that as the Inca used to keep records with knotted strings or quipu, Ogham might suit the language as it looks a bit like the quipu. He found that there are enough letters in Ogham to write Southern Quisha, which is spoken in Peru, Bolivia, Argentina, and Chile. And that is basically the Ogham alphabet. And so he's done this, and apparently that's very similar to Quipu. That is Quipu. Fascinating. And this is what the Quipu looks like. So I want you to note that there are loops, and then there are loops tying up loops, and the knots go in different directions, with the rope coming off to the front and one rope coming off to the back, or both might come off to the front, or both might go out to the back, and hence this could be responsible for the nubs pointing forwards or backwards, because some are inverted. And here again, another variation of that alphabet, and we see, if written vertically, the Ogham script is written with these. And now, before we get on to the good stuff, I want to actually give you a slideshow to show you some Inca stuff in Ireland. So I was there in 2014, and it's just a beautiful place. And someone pointed out on Twitter, because I mentioned this to them, and they noticed that this tower has different rocks to this building here. This is the Rock of Cashel in central South Ireland. And if we zoom into the tower, it's starting to look very Inca. It's got the rocks jeering off in different directions, and they're very close together. It's got this kind of Inca way of putting the rocks, whereas you don't see that here. You don't in the medieval Gothic 1300s thing. You don't see it there, but you see it here because this is around 1000 AD. This is a lot earlier. They could have been still traveling to America in this time, and they probably were. And it's just fascinating, just done in a kind of Inca style. But that is not, and you can see that quite clearly for yourself. This looks like rubble. That looks almost like Inca, almost the same quality. And so this is also at the Rock of Cashel, the Mary, the Jesus, the Mary, the Joseph, and there's holy water. Funny old writing with some almost American-looking mythological animals. You kind of see, isn't that like the Inca puma? The holy water vestibule, a little cross there. This is the round tower close up, that Inca round tower, and obviously you actually see cement here. It's probably been restored many times, including in the 19th and 20th centuries. That's looking inside. There's the tower again, showing the Inca-like blocks, and yeah, someone pointed this out to me on Twitter, so I thought I'll look back in the old photos and have a look. Yes, and there it is. And there it is in the distance. So there's nothing to do here. So I went walkies, and I found, look at that, a monastery. And there's only cows there. And so I approached the monastery. And nothing really Inca about this place. Very, very Georgian. Very medieval. Extremely medieval. And there it is. You see, look at that. It's just incredible. Just incredible. And the reason I show you this is now we're going to flip to another monastery, which is in Ardmore on the south coast of Ireland. Just absolutely incredible. We see this. This was contemporary with ancient Rome, so this is Dark Ages Ireland with these arches. And this tower is not in the Inca style. You see the difference. But and that's the area. I was living somewhere around here. Look, boom, a Quipu inscription. Whoops, I made an OM inscription. And you see it sort of waves. It's got waves in it, snake-like. And Dark Ages. Look, another one. These things are everywhere. Here we see this rockwork around a round sort of building, similar to what we showed in the previous video or two. There's the tower. And the rocks are almost like lapis lazuli, kind of azurite. Very strange on the beach. Just incredible rocks. Just incredible. And is that a port or something? I saw that on the beach at Ardmore. And look, like the Inca, rock pool fountains. So there's actually a fountain inside these rocks. And a holy water is trickling out, and it tastes holy. It tastes like it's almost sweet. It's the best thing you've ever tasted. I mean, look at this rock fountain. You see, fascinating. One of these has been removed. It's the Jesus, Mary, Joseph once again. Just fascinating. Look, you look over the edge where I was standing. There's like you look over the edge over here, and you see this is a little dry dock, and just beautiful places, and which I've never been to the Inca world, but they remind me of similar things. You can see the similarity. So let's get on to the good stuff finally. So here's the similarity between the Quipu and the Inca wall. It's very long and it's very short. Look, there's only one. Look, maybe one. So there's the top where the nubs are. Then there's another knot, a knot, and then we're at the bottom. So it's like 3 layers tall. And again, here we have some conquistador / Inca publication from the 1500s, and it shows it's very long, but it's short. And there are dots. And this is what we see in the pre-Inca wall. And look at the knots. There are figure 8s. It loops many times. it can loop back in on itself like that. We're going to see that in the stonework. Just fascinating. So let's start to look at the stonework. So here's the stonework. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring up, what I'll do, I'll actually put this, this one, what I'll do is I'll put this on the side there. And then I'll bring up GIMP, and I've actually got a tablet here, and we can start drawing. So what I'll do is, I'm going to just start drawing. So what I'm doing is, so I was thinking, do you read it left, right, or do you read it up, down? What's going on? And I'm just going to start drawing. So I've got the pen, and what we're doing as we're going down is we're going left, or we're going right, and we're following a kind of stringed area, and it starts to look like hanging loops, hanging bits of string, if we just fill in the gaps. So there's one, there's another one, and it always veers left or it veers right, and that could be what's responsible for these little angles we see in the rocks. Here, look how the rock is curved. Why is it curved? It's curved so it can look like a loop, and in fact I should bring up a better picture than that. I should bring up that picture. So I'm going to shove that on the side there, bring up the GIMP, and now we can start to see how it's all hanging together. So it's like these loops here, you see, and then there's a smaller loop underneath, and you see how this is one big rock here in a section of two. That's almost like a figure eight, and you see figure eight knots as well, like for example here, you see underneath another knot. So where does the inscription start? Does it start from the top of the nubs? The top of the stones, possibly. You know, this is just a preliminary video just to show you guys how it's hanging together. So we veer to the left. Maybe there's a loop here. Maybe this is looping up with the other ones. Now let's look for something unusual. So here we have when you say something like that, it's as if this is looping back into there, or you know. We're only at the preliminary stages. It's quite interesting. Now look here. There must be an answer for the complexity that we see going on here. And so what I've done is I've drawn in this to show that there are loops possible. And reasons for the complexity of this is that you have very complex loops here like this, tied in different ways. And of course, by the way, the fact they're tying knots, they're sailors. They've traveled across the Atlantic. This is a Viracocha code. Just fascinating. By the way, that door must be a code as well. You see how it's doing all this? I don't know how old that door is, but that must be a code as well. So I reckon it's read from the top of the pre-Inca layer, and you just simply go down, and all these little things are a code to learn for them to read. So they could read, say, the name of the owner of the house or whatever. And this is I reckon this is how it was done. So let's look at and look a clue. We see basically the snake going downwards like this. Why is it drawn like that? Of course, they're drawn in different directions. Just fascinating, just fascinating. Look at the complexity here. Is that like just a complicated looped knot with the dots as the vowels, possibly. And another clue, the snake. It's a clue on how to read it. And there's a three dimensionality as well, because is the knot pointing outwards or is it pointing behind, as we've seen? So is that why some of these stones are pointing outwards and not inwards? And we see that on this wall over here. There are actually some stones. I've seen a wall. I promise you, I've seen that wall. Look, they're pointing outwards, and some stones are inset and some stones are outset. Is this where the knots are flopping out to the front instead of to the back? And this just it looks like a string. You know, it looks like a string hanging. Literally like a string hanging. Just unbelievable. Okay, guys, enough from me. Look, that explains, guys, it explains these things. These things show it's a loop. There's a loop going around like that. That explains it. So it's just absolutely fascinating. Just fascinating. There's actually one more thing I want to show you guys. Let's just bring this. I'm going to open this thing with GIMP. Just a second. We're going to bring this up with GIMP, and I can draw it. So this is the famous puma, which I learned about obviously on Brian Forster's channel. And look, so not only do you have the puma, but you actually have a kind of it's actually a bunch of serpents. So this is roughly one serpent, and then you've got another serpent there. So it can be conceived as a bunch of serpents. So does the writing start from where the nubs are? Is that the initiation point, showing that these are knots? Because a nub, this is what I forgot to point out, a nub is a knot. We've seen the language that a nub is a knot. This is a knotted string language. And what we have here is basically loops. So I'll just undo, how do I, just undo that. And so this is basically, look, loop. You see what I mean? And these are loops hanging down. And that is like a knot, or like a bigger knot veering to the left. That's what those small stones are. That small stone is there. So guys, this is what I reckon. I reckon the most likely scenario. Bear in mind also the rough stones on the bottom, just like the rough stones on the top. I don't know if they're as rough down the bottom. Showing that, you know, they did work in rough stones as well. What do you think of this? I reckon this was a way of reading it. They did this with alchemy. They smoothed it all over with alchemy. That's in the ancient myths, I guess. What do you think? What do you think about this, guys? And thank you so much for watching. That's the way I reckon it's done. That's how to read Inca walls. The language, who knows? Maybe a mix of Irish and Quechua or whatever it was. Who knows what the language was 1,500 years ago? Who knows? Who knows if the Inca are even the original inhabitants of Cuzco? This was probably built, I don't know when it was built, but this is a hanging string language. Yeah, that's it.